And they used AI to bring the drawing that the kid was just finished drawing, bring it to life. And this gave the kids excitement and something to be proud of, that they were running to their parents to be proud. Look what I did. They saw that, hey, this app that my kid is using is not just spending time on another app. It's like very positive screen time. They could see the value of the app. So when we introduced this during first-time user experience, it really increased ARPU. Because parents could really understand, hey, this product worth me investing in it.
Hello, I'm your host, David Bernard. And with me today, Remedy Cat CEO Jacob Eiting. Our guest today is Yoav Sharon, Head of Growth and Product at Simply. Simply is the world's leading creativity companion for the home. On the podcast, we talk with Yoav about reaching brand new audiences through web funnels, how they created their own Big Mac index for global pricing, and why monthly plans can beat annual on LTV. Hey, Yoav, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to chat.
I thought it'd be helpful to get a quick overview. Simply does a lot, and to have context for the rest of the conversation, it'd be great to just hear a little bit about what y'all do.
Sounds good. Maybe I'll start with a very easy question. Does any of you play any musical instrument?
Oh yeah. You can't see it in the shot here, but my guitar's hanging on the wall. I mean, I call it it's my aspirational guitar because it gets looked at a lot more than it gets played, but it's there.
Oh, I took classical piano lessons growing up.
David's actually more of a musician, I think, than me. But
used to be more of a
used to be. That's also accurate for me. Yeah.
So it's actually so familiar what you're saying, and aspirational is a word. Basically, Simply is about helping kids and adults around the world learn creative hobbies, learn how to play piano, how to play the guitar, how to gain confidence in singing, how to express themselves through drawing. And all of these, and again, like you're saying inspirational, and you said you pick it up, David, as a kid, it's always some kind of a dream. It's quite hard to learn this new skill. So what Simply is doing is we're breaking up to small chunks each of the pedagogical way, and we help people through all the challenges, and we really make dreams come true in this aspect. We help people across the world learn their musical instrument, that what they've been dreaming on since kids, and it's really exciting things to do.
I love it. When I learned guitar initially, I was like probably 12. And I did it via, I can't remember the name of the software, but some piece of boxed software I got from Staples.
Oh wow!
Because there was no YouTube, Jacob.
There was no App Store. I drove to the town over, and I probably paid $45 for a box of software that taught me to play guitar. So like, nice. I might be one of the like early digital like musical natives, right? But I've always been sold on the concept since then, because I actually did learn guitar sitting at my desktop PC with that piece of software. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's fantastic. Today, basically, we're able to bring a coach almost at a coach level next to you to be with you as you learn all these skills and all these hobbies. We'll get right into all of these, but this is in big. We have, in general, I'll just mention, we have a Simply Piano, our most mature app. We have Simply Guitar and Simply Sing, and Simply Draw was the recent app that joined. Across all of them, we are active with million users and learners around the world.
Wow.
11 languages, 180 countries. So we're quite at the interesting scale at this point.
That's actually where I did want to start, is the multi-app portfolio. So I actually had the chief product officer from Duolingo on the podcast earlier this year, and he talked about how they tried to launch multiple learning apps and ended up pulling it back in. I've heard from a lot of other people who struggled to do the portfolio approach.
Oh, David, do you know the Elevate story? Like before we did Elevate, like
no.
It was originally this company called Mind Snacks, and we had like 10 different distinct languages. It was a nightmare. Like it was It just is hard, like technically, right? And just everything.
And promotion, like having to get people to 10 different apps. And you think like, oh, they download the main app and then we push them to the other apps, but that doesn't always work.
Economies of scale are a lot rarer than people think, right?
Not only this, basically, when you have your first mature app and it's already at scale, getting to the second app is more than finding the product market fit. It's basically proving that you have a repeatable way to create value. And what we do at Simply, we always listen to our users, and we saw that our audience is not single users and this is it. In many cases, they are part of a household. And in that household, there are many passions for creative hobbies. People want to play the guitar, people want to sing, to cook, to draw. And we always start by really understanding what the pains are, what the real needs, what limits people. Like for you, Jacob, like it was kind of hard to learn from a box, from a non-interactive way to try to pick up at the age of 12. It doesn't know anything about you at that point, right? So trying to understand what limits people from learning a certain hobby, and then forming a multidisciplinary team. We call them pods, that basically tries to build a product offering and nail down that value proposition that actually meets that needs. And we use our playbooks that we try, of course, we have those playbooks, the early growth playbooks and the early customer discovery playbooks. And it's not always the same, like you mentioned, but we apply the same principles across all of our apps. And, first principle thinking, and we'll talk about other principles in a second, but it's definitely a hard task. It's not trivial to translate your success. And today we have already, I mentioned earlier, all the apps, but Simply Piano is a market leader amongst like 80% amongst all piano learning apps. We're already in that market. Simply Sing and Simply Guitar are growing to become market leaders. And actually, Simply Draw, that only was the recent launch, it grew 6x last year in revenue and already at an interesting scale. So it's not growing slow. I think at this point, it's really exciting that we feel that we have certain playbooks that we can apply for finding product market fit with not everything is success. We don't always succeed, but we do have some ways that allow us to repeat
you kind of know what works. Like you've also defined a little bit your product or your market, right? Like you have the set of users and you're talking about adjacent users. Like we think about this with features with Revenue Cat. Like your first product market fit is hard, like because you're just like shooting in the dark. But then it's like once you have those users, you mentioned just talk to them and like you can kind of figure out, and if it's not that user, it's like a user that's like almost exactly the same but like slightly different that you just missed. It's like, okay, how do I get that? And then of course there's like, the resource engine, right? It's like the first successful PMF tends to produce excess capital and flow revenue, whatever you need to invest in the next thing, right? So
yeah, I want to dig into the playbooks, but I was curious first, was it always the plan to do a portfolio of apps, or did you try to I think Simply Piano was first, right? And Simply Guitar was second. Did you try and just like have a tab bar with like piano or a menu selection with piano and guitar, or did you always plan on doing a portfolio?
It was not always the plan. Early on, we did understand that we are serving quite many needs. And it wasn't that trivial to decide, are we doing it under one umbrella or are we doing it in separate apps? Each one has its pros and cons. There is no right way to go about it.
And I'd love to dig deep into that because this is a real challenge for apps, because you have an app like Calm where they, make a name for themselves in meditation. And it wasn't necessarily obvious that sleep stories should go inside the Calm app. Like, does that like confuse the experience? Does it overload users? How do you onboard to two different use cases? Like, it creates complexity in a single app. And one of the things you generally try to do in an app is keep it as simple and straightforward as you can. So let's dig deep into like that decision-making process of like why create the second app and any struggles you had trying to fit it in the first app.
So everything for us always starts and ends with what makes sense for the users, what brings value to the users. And as you mentioned, we deeply understand the job to be done what they're looking to achieve. And you're right, Jacob, that we're looking at adjacent users, but still, when you have a household, when you have parents and kids and siblings, and each one at different intent levels, different schedule, different availabilities, it's different mindset altogether. So when we build new separate apps, for us, we start with separate apps. It helps us not pull weight on any product. We talk about this, how we work. We try to work very fast and very independent with each product. And one of the challenges that we discovered is on the user acquisition front, on the growth front, where when you have multiple apps platform, you want to make sure that you don't always just optimize performance for each of the apps. You want to make sure that those apps don't compete with each other. You really try to understand where your audience overlap, where they don't overlap. And eventually it all goes back to the classic growth questions. Okay, who are our users? Where are they? How can we reach them? With which messaging? Basically tests to ensure that we don't cannibalize each other and we don't compete. And I'll tell you, even I think mid last year, we've had a very interesting test. I think it deserves its own episode. It's very, I will not go into details too much, but in essence, what we've done there, we tested for the interaction between the apps and across platforms, iOS and Android. And we have app campaigns when on the growth side, and we have web to app campaigns. And what we did, we turned off app campaigns on a certain geo. We turned off web campaigns on another geo, and we started seeing what happens to the organic traffic, what happens to the interactions between apps, between platforms on the same app. And we were able to crystallize any cannibalization that happened or did not happen. So we're doing this, we're measuring this way to make sure that we don't compete. But I'll tell you, the bottom line is, when you have a platform with multiple apps, it's never about perfect attribution.
The world's so chaotic, right? There's just so many things that can happen.
It's
right?
so chaotic, but you do need enough truth in your CAC modeling, in your customer acquisition cost modeling, to understand where to put your next dollar. This is the essence. So it's not about perfect attribution, but it's about enough understanding of where you want to put your next dollar when you spend.
When you launched Simply Guitar, did you, and this goes to the cannibalization question, did you promote it inside the piano app, or did you use what you learned scaling Simply Piano and do almost like a parallel motion to scale Simply Guitar?
Parallel motion. We only do these promotions when it really serves our users, meaning where we feel that actually, so I'll tell you even an interesting example. We heard from many Simply Piano users that we understood that when they play, they also sing. So we added in our library of many songs, a lot of licensed songs, we added an indication for those pieces that we also had the same piece in Simply Sing. So that a person know, okay, I can learn how to play this on my piano, and my spouse can increase her confidence in singing this, and we can sing and play together. Or I can do it by myself. So only when we do feel that it gives value to each of the apps, we do this type of promotions. We do have one angle, and we can talk about it separately, where we do promote our bundle, all of our apps. But this is definitely separate. When we start, we always start with applying our independent growth playbooks.
And it makes a lot of sense. And as you were describing your whole business earlier, I was thinking, it was like a light bulb going off in my head. Like, my daughter loves to draw. My son is playing the saxophone. My other son learned guitar. It's like in a family unit, you do have all these different interests, creative interests. And that's where the cross promotion makes sense. It's interesting to hear that it doesn't sound like that's a huge motion for you, because that would be the playbook I think most people would expect. You have this big scaled app, you're going to like bombard it with like pushing people to get the other app. But it sounds like you take a much more subtle approach of like, hey, you're learning piano. Do you also want to sing? And then, hey, if you have a family, you can learn all the things. So how do you present that to the user in an effective way?
I think what leads us is not the growth aspect, but rather the usage and retention. And at the beginning, Simply Piano, we had only a single user, single profile. And we learned exactly to your point. These are our households. Many people using, sometimes several are using Simply Piano, sometimes several are using several apps. So we introduced the family plan. And the family plan gave flexibility for different members of the family. Later on, it became multi-profile with up to 5 profiles and multi-app. So you have an offering that allows for this flexibility. And what we saw that when you look, of course, on a cohort usage, you see that at any given cohort, the segment that has the strongest retention by far, are those that have multi-app, multi-profile accounts. Because, like you said, you're now very busy with hosting and podcasts and stuff. So, but your daughter, she's just went to summer vacation. She has time to start drawing, and your spouse is now she wants during the weekend to learn to play the guitar. So, at any point in time, one person of the family will engage with the app and enjoy this family plan, multi-app, multi-profile.
Yeah,
family.
it really fits the narrative you're saying just about the adjacencies in the household. I mean, I think about our Spotify family account like subscription is like nobody's churning. You know what I mean? Like even if,
Really?
it's just because like everybody gets one and like we want our profiles to be separate and like we pay and then we'll pay forever, right? Like because it'll never be a line that everybody wants to cancel at the same time.
I agree.
Right? So it makes a lot of sense.
What are the mechanics of presentation? Like, what have you learned over time? Like, you know, when somebody comes into Simply Guitar, is the first paywall they see doesn't even mention a family plan. You just try and get them on guitar. And then like at some point in the future, as they retain, you present that. Like, what are the mechanics of how you do that?
It differs. It differs not only across apps, but also across the maturity of the app and across time. I think it's not in itself isolated. It depends with which expectations they came from the ad. Which campaigns we have out there, what is our current value proposition, and in sometimes we can discuss it as well. Sometimes we have them soft paywalls to start with. Sometimes only waiting for them to really feel the value, to appreciate the value, and then ask them to subscribe. So it does vary, and I think that like all of your. I think all of your interviewees and all the companies that you're speaking with, it's all about testing, always testing and what the data shows us.
Do you ever advertise the family bundle as a unit? Like, do you ever do ads of saying, hey, your whole family's creative, like, you know, join the bundle? And for those, do you send them to the web or to the app?
So you touched exactly the point. We're a subscription mobile app. So we used to be 100% app campaigns. And we started enjoying web campaigns a couple of years ago. Last year, I think we've already, 20% of Simply Piano revenue is already coming from web campaigns. What web campaigns allowed us is, of course, it does allow us for better attribution because on the app campaigns you have ATT, and this is one of the main challenges. But in addition to better attribution and sometimes lower fees, but again, this is not our main driver, it does allow us to, first of all, to customize the experience better to our users. And also through that, it allows us to reach new audiences that we weren't able to reach them before that. We can talk about this, but I think the last point is exactly to your point. We're able to offer them this bundle offering. When you do your app campaign, you send someone to the App Store. They are now going to download Simply Sing, Simply Draw, Simply Piano. But when they get into some kind of a web experience that is where you can really tell them, oh, welcome to Simply. In Simply, you can access all those apps. So this is where we're able to market our bundle offer. And definitely we're doing it in the web, and it's really working well for us.
It's kind of fascinating to me how the shape of Apple's how Apple's rules shape how you develop a business, because in some ways, pre-ATT, where you could deterministically see that somebody saw an ad for Simply Guitar, maybe in that world, it would have made more sense to have one app that has everything in it, because you can do an ad for Simply Guitar, you can deterministically see what ad they saw, and then put them through an onboarding that takes them through Simply Guitar. If you were advertising a family plan, you could have deterministically put them through the family plan. And there's a little bit of ways to hack around that now with product pages, where you can send the app campaign to a different product page, and then what product page they landed on, so you can customize a little bit. But it's kind of fascinating to me that the part of the draw to the web was actually Apple's rules making it harder to do these kinds of like customizations on it. Any other comments on that, or just lessons from the web?
No, so exactly that. And many companies it's very popular webflows, right? You have Noom on the one side of the extreme side, and you have single page webflows on the other side. And what we found that working really well for us is the ability to have a holistic flow from the ad, exactly to your point, through onboarding and all the way to the paywall itself. If someone clicked on a parent ad, an ad addressed at parents, we can address through the onboarding the entire pains and the entire needs of that parent that looks for an app for their kid. And through that, if I'm taking, I think, one step back, when we browse our social networks, people on Facebook and stuff, we're in a very lean back mindset. We're scrolling and going from a lean back mindset to an app store and immediately ask to download an app, it's quite a friction. And people are, no, I'm chilling. Okay, I have an ad, but I'm not ready to download an app and start learning a new skill. Whereas our web flow helps us move people from a lean back mindset through consideration.
Yeah, you ask them a basic, simple question just to get that first,
Exactly, and it can take a few minutes, but still
by the end,
it's a shift of
they'll
mindset.
hit the download button, right? Because they've been warmed up.
It makes much easier to help them understand the value,
right,
even before trying the
But
product.
even aside from that, you're just like, from a psychological perspective, you're like waking them up a little bit, right? They give them a little time to kind of like,
promoting them, exactly.
Yeah. So how much of your traffic now is going through web funnels, and have you seen any kind of ARPU lift or any meaningful benefit of going through the web?
About 20% of our revenue from Simply Piano, like in the past year, came from a web flow. We did see a significant benefits for some of our audience to go through this web flow. We did see some very successful tests where this holistic experience from ad through onboarding through the paywall managed to increase conversion significantly.
Are you sending, for your paid, are you sending some users straight to the App Store and some to web? And like, is there a rough breakdown of like when to send them where?
So it depends. Like each app and its maturity level, at what is the right creative at the right timeline. There are many considerations, and we have very well-oiled like growth machine that checks all the effectiveness and performance of all of our campaigns all the time. It allows for better attribution, so all this personalization through the way is something that benefits us, but it does vary. You don't have strict rules.
So it's not like we're only doing web to app. It's just like web to app is one of the types. You pair a piece of creative, a placement, plus like where it goes, and all three of those are being tested and optimized.
Exactly. And actually, I mentioned earlier that it allows us to get to incremental audience. So the web flow, for example, for us, it helped us be successful with Facebook for the first time.
I've heard that before.
For Simply Piano, it didn't work before because of the lean back mindset. So first of all, we're able now finally to reach out to audiences on Facebook.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's just like the universe of people who download apps. It's almost like an identity thing. It's like, I don't do apps, right? And so it's the same thing. You got to like prime them to be like, no, actually, you should do apps, right? I've heard the same from other apps as well.
I had this exact conversation with Leon Sasson from
that's
Science.
who told me. I think this is originally. Yeah,
he was on the podcast earlier this year, and he said exactly that like they've seen a ton of success, but only or almost exclusively with the Facebook ads. And he attributed it even to age, that, you know, it is typically older, more affluent audience, and an audience that just needed more warming up.
Millennials are app native. Like, you know, the App Store's been around since I was in college, right? And so like, and that's not true for the generations ahead of me a little bit. So
we don't take it. We're not insulted, but we're that audience.
Yeah, exactly. Any other top lessons from the web, as far as like, I mean, like that, I think that's really insightful for folks to say, okay, we never found success on Facebook before. Let's try Webflow from Facebook, and not replicate our Instagram funnel. Any other top lessons like that you think people can take away, and like where to experiment, how to experiment? It sounds like y'all have done a lot of experimentation. So I'd be curious to hear any other kind of top lessons people can take away.
We don't look at Webflow as only a place where we can save some platform fees. And usually this is one of the drivers, right? Like attribution is one driver, platform fees. But we learned that it's just a way to reach incremental audiences. You just need to understand what works with Webflow. How can you communicate your value in a way? And by the way, you don't just replicate your app store to web experience. It's not about that. It's about how you can make your users or potential users understand some of the value they're going to get, set up the right expectations so that when they hit the paywall, they really understand the value they're going to get.
That's a really different perspective, I think, than a lot of people these days. I mean, I hear from more and more people that it's just like, screw Apple, I'm going to send all my stuff to the web. And there's this weird hostility, but it sounds like you take a much more pragmatic approach of like, whatever makes us the most money, that's what we're going to do. Like, how do you think about that?
So I think it's more than just pragmatic. We look at the platforms, Google and Apple. We don't look at them at the other side. We look at them as a true partners. We have, first of all, alignment of interests. We want to reach the most relevant audience.
You have 30 points of alignment of interest.
Exactly. No, and they want to have these quality apps as value to their users and app stores. And they see most of the metrics, right? But metrics are lagging indicators. They don't always help understand. So we found what's working really well for us is we work very closely with them. We share with them our plans. We share with them our roadmaps. Of course, we share with them our challenges. We ask for their help in supporting some of the areas where we're going. And we found that in addition to helping us understand where the market is going, it also helps us really gain some access to beta programs. It helps us gain access to design partnerships. Some of them I cannot even talk about here, like all the stuff, but really, really cool design partnerships that we're partner with both platforms. And basically we're looking at the platforms as real partners. Of course, no one likes to pay large fees for this.
Zero. If you ask people what fee they would want to pay, it's 0%, right? That's the only logical answer.
Exactly. We understand that, okay, and we're not happy to pay, but still, we look at them as true partners, and we have very close collaboration and relationship with them.
I think it's like, David, you're just talking about the rage, and it's like, Tim. If you want to come on the pod, Tim, I know you listen, Tim Sweeney, please, you're always welcome. But it's like getting mad at the weather. You know what I mean? Like, you can get mad at the weather. You're allowed. It's a free country. You can do what you want. But I don't think it's going to improve your outcomes, you know?
You cannot reach audience without them.
Yeah. And so, and I think there's much more benefit in maximizing the relationship, seeing the alignment, and, than trying to, and, everybody I've talked to who has run the experiment has like seen how much they can net out of like the web to app, or sorry, app to web flows, like running their purchases. It's interesting, but it's I don't want to say marginal, but it's pretty close to marginal, right? Like it's not business changing.
It wasn't exactly. It used to be more, but it's not that.
And I get it. This is where I get accused of being a shill for Apple because like obviously I like AAP and stuff, but again, it's
just
like
about making the most money,
right? It's testing. I think you mentioned it already, but testing. It's like, hey, to test it, try it. But I think
at Revenue Cat, we're building web funnels. We have web payments. We have paddle integration. But it's about how do you make the most money? Not how do you screw Apple? It's send people to the web when the web makes sense. Send people to the app when the app makes sense. But don't and your point is so good, Jacob. Don't let this kind of anger or rage or frustration,
justice mindset, right?
Mindset, make bad business decisions. Make business decisions. Don't make emotional, justice-driven decisions.
Is it fair that Apple's $1 trillion company has a lot more leverage than you? I don't know. I don't make up the fairness rules, but it's reality, right? So deal with it.
I think a lot of people listening will be curious, and you don't have to answer if you don't, have a good answer, but how would you recommend people build a relationship with Apple? Often it's a we'll call you, don't call us kind of situation. But do you have any tips for working with Apple and Google as partners and maybe even how you establish that relationship early on?
I think, any company, any app developer, at a certain size, but even already at the earlier sizes, you have an account manager there. Embrace that. Keep them in the loop. Fly to meet them. Make sure that you share with them your plans, your challenges. So, in the earlier days, we used to send our developers to WWDC with real problems that we have with building our sound recognition engine. And we gave unprecedented access to engineers in their sound system, so to help us. And all of these forms relationships, and they see a partner here that really cares to have to great value to the users on their platform. So we're always trying to adopt all the new features and adopt all the the recent technologies that we can to make sure that we give the most quality value to our users, the user experience across all of our apps. We have monthly meetings even in Simple Piano. I think we have a fortnightly meetings, bi-weekly meetings with our account managers there, both in Apple and Google. So we're always keeping track and updating them and learning from them. Where do they see that we're not according to what they expect in terms of benchmarks and stuff like this? So I think it's just embrace this collaboration and keep ongoing communication with your account manager.
That's more meetings than I have with most of my reports.
That's really great advice, though. And speaking of those partnerships and collaborations, I know y'all have been working on Vision Pro and Android XR and things like that. And I'll be honest, I'm a little jealous in some ways in that, as platforms, they're so early that I imagine you're not seeing a dollar for dollar return on your investment in those platforms. But it's you're getting to be at the forefront of this technology that will continue getting better and better. And it helps build that relationship. I'm sure Apple and Google are really happy that you were on the platform. And so even if you're not getting a dollar for dollar return on, today, you'll hopefully get it in the future.
Well, if it's ever a good platform, there's so much alpha in being early on a platform that just compounds. So if it does take off, then the bet, even if you don't invest anymore, the bet will pay off way down the road, potentially.
I agree. I super agree. And, you touched the XR and wearables and all this world of augmented reality. And for us, learning hobbies, creative hobbies, when people experience them in an augmented reality, it's a different game. Of course, one day, this is how people will learn how to play the piano, to play the guitar, to sing, to draw. For us, you touched it, I cannot say, but definitely some of the design partnerships that I mentioned earlier are around these areas. And for us, we really care to be, like Jacob, like you said, at the forefront of all of these releases. Anytime that we learn that a new device is coming up, we try to understand, okay, this form factor, which of our products will benefit the most from that form factor? And it differs across apps and across devices. And at that point, we set up another pod where we are working very fast and very closely with the platform to make sure that we can have a product as early as the release of that device out there. So I agree with you. It's not about an ROI right now, the direct revenues, but it's definitely the direction, the future, and we really believe in that future. So we want to be there very strongly.
Yeah, and I'm such a huge Vision Pro fan. I mean, it's too expensive. It's
David,
too heavy.
You're gonna hear this. I've never used it.
You haven't?
Never put one on my face. No, I should have asked you to bring it to the offsite or something.
I'll tell you, I'm not kidding. I led the first build of Simply Piano on Vision Pro, and I'm not kidding, guys. Seeing someone learning how to play with Vision Pro, and I'm like all immersed in that experience, and seeing how at the end of their first course they are getting a standing ovation from a crowd in Carnegie Hall, and I'm getting goosebumps. It's like goosebumps, and this guy played Ode to Joy at the end, and it feels like at the top of the world. You cannot get that in a non-immersive experience. This is one of the real benefits of having this augmented reality.
That's what's so sad to me, that rumors are Apple's kind of slowed down and they are working on the Vision Air, but it's going to be, delayed a year or two or whatever it is. So it will get lighter and easier and better
for all of us to be
all the things. But man, exactly what you're saying is like, I don't use a Vision Pro a lot, but when I use it, and especially, and I wish Apple would just keep leaning more into it and putting more content out, because when you see a basketball game where you can like actually see how huge, how athletic these, I've never sat courtside at an NBA game, but you put on the Vision Pro and it's like, holy crap, that is a totally different experience than watching a TNN, broadcast of a basketball game. The Vision Pro, they did all those like sample videos, and they have a whole series with like adventure stuff. It is insane how immersive those experiences are. And it's like, I want to use it more, but as a platform, I wish it would have taken off more. And I actually had not downloaded the Simply Piano app on it yet. I need to go do that this afternoon.
Yeah, you should go ahead.
But it's like when you get that experience. So yeah, I'm as bullish as you are on the future of it, but we are very early innings, and it's going to take a while for the tech to catch up.
They make an immersive email and podcasting app. Then I will have a big use for it. Until then, I don't have as much time. It'd be an aspirational goggles for me.
YouTube on the
I'm sure.
YouTube built a native app, and it kind of sucks compared to the one that was the Apollo Christian built, Juno. But man, like kicking back in a recliner with YouTube, like 100-inch TV, even that not immersive as far as like the video itself wasn't immersive. It was like an
young children full-time job plus VR headsets. There's not enough room for all three.
and that's part of why I don't use it very much. Yeah. All right. It's no more fanboying around the Vision Pro. Let's get back to the topics. I did want to talk about your contrarian view on monthly plans. I know that's something Simply Piano really focuses on, where a lot of the industry has been pushing harder and harder into annual plans. So why do you push in monthly plans, and what are your tactics around that?
Definitely annual plans is the way that most companies start with, especially for Simply, where learning a new skill, learning how to play the piano, how to express yourself in drawing better, how to gain confidence in singing, it takes time. It takes time, and it requires a lot of commitment. I'm going to now dedicate time the next I'm going to start. You don't need much time, by the way, even 50 minutes a day, but still you want to start something, you're committing to someone. And we saw that committing to an annual plan sometimes deters our users. It's quite another commitment of another financial commitment. So first of all, it started introducing monthly plans, and we saw that it adds that flexibility to our users. So over time, we realized, okay, it can work in some aspects, and some users find themselves feeling better with annual plans because of the discount, and their intent is more clear. Whereas others, they select the monthly plans, and they are renewing it from a month to month. Now, it's not that straightforward because, of course, in an annual plan, it's better cash wise, right? You get all the annual price in advance. This is why companies start with it. You have now an entire year to improve your product before the renewal comes. The move to monthly works only when you have good enough retention renewals on your monthly plans. So when it's justified, when you can really move there, the math does work. However, again here, it's never only math for us. What we care a lot about is to be able to have this fast feedback loop between a winning test and how it gets translated, winning on usage, and how it gets translated to its monetary value. So by having monthly plans, this feedback loop is really fast. Every usage improvement.
You get more renewal binary events, right? That are trustworthy.
Exactly. You improve your usage, you improve your retention. People use it more. Immediately it translates to a better renewal, 1 month renewal multiplier, and it gets translated to revenues. So it does work well for us, the monthly plan. We moved there after having a very heavily and thoroughly tested pricing strategy for that, because it's not, you don't just do monthly plans, okay, but you need to really test thoroughly to understand what would be the right point, the best optimal balance for your users and for you. And today we have these monthly plans many of our users are using, and some are still using annual plans that fits them better.
And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a reason why Netflix and big companies like that don't do monthly plans. And I was doing the math in my head as you were talking a minute ago, because I've never even done this math before, is that a $25 a month Netflix subscription is $300 a year. I did that right?
Yeah, if I had to pay $300 for Netflix, I'd be like, it's never worth that to me. There's nothing about Netflix worth $300 to me, which obviously isn't true because I've been a continuous subscriber for 20 years or something, but I don't feel that way, right?
I had this conversation with Seth Miller, like maybe 5 years ago. He was like, look, my thesis is if you have a high retaining app, a really great app and a loyal user base, the optimal LTV will always come from a monthly. But he was struggling to do that in his app Rap Chat. But that always stuck with me. And thinking about the Netflix of the world, like we're saying, you wouldn't pay $300 in one drop for Netflix. And so, yeah, how are you thinking about and using the pricing to maximize LTV? And are you seeing good LTV on your monthly?
Yes. We wouldn't have moved if we haven't seen. No, seriously, it's and it's not across all of our apps, only at a certain maturity level where we do see really strong usage for our monthly plans, we do this transition. And we do have better LTV, basically, on our monthly plans for Simply Piano. For the other apps, we still split some of them and we do a lot of testing ongoing. But in our more mature apps, we feel really comfortable about going with monthly plans.
So I'm curious on the annual plans, because it's something a lot of people test, and I imagine you've done a ton of testing on it. What have you found to be a good ratio or a good discount percentage that does attract the people you want to annual, but then also kind of maintains a high enough monthly price where you do kind of maximize that LTV?
There is no a single percent or single discount, but definitely the discounts vary, I think, sometimes it's 60% or sometimes 70, 75. It depends on the plan itself. Of course, user psychology plays a lot here, right? And all of our biases and anchoring, there are a lot of user psychology goes into pricing. This discount level is definitely one of the levers that we found really beneficial to test, basically.
I wonder, I don't know if this played in at you, but I feel like annual versus monthly for a lot of developers, whether they think about it or not, it's like kind of a cash flow hack, right? It's like financial engineering. It's basically financing your growth with like future customer revenues. Does that play into your philosophy here? It's like the need or lack of need for operating capital at any given time. Does that play into it at all?
We try not to get into these things. It's not about financial engineering, which I agree. There can be this way, but it's not like that for us. For us, it's we value this cash when we try to, at the beginning of the product, when we try to use it to improve the product over time. At the end of the day, yes, annual plans give you a cash benefit, but monthly plans, we feel that it gives you like some kind of the truth about your usage.
What's the actual dollar? There's a dollar value to the information,
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Any retention, any usage value that is being really translated. So we try to avoid this financial engineering. It's not beneficial. We do what works really well for our users and finding the right balance of letting those that care more about the discount to have the annual plans and letting those that care more about ongoing usage on a monthly basis, let them choose the monthly. This is what we found works best for us.
I would say it's a luxury. It's a bit of a luxury of a company that has time, that has like the ability to like compound and let this thing grow. Because you see this often in like, especially in like the money Twitter growth hacky part of like app world, where it's like, hey, 3-day trial to an annual plan gives you like the most cash flow and then you can reinvest it. And like that definitely works, but like it's very unlikely to me that is like globally optimal, right? That is like probably just what you need to go from 0 to 1, which it's the kind of point I was digging into is like kind of sometimes is right. And that can dominate the reasoning. It's like, hey, the financial, like borrowing money from your customers at a 0% interest rate, or actually in this case, a 40% fee, a 60, you have to give a pretty big discount to do that, but like can be optimal, which can be an input too. But I'm with you, and I mean that's like both I think emotionally and like financially. I think like the information flow of monthly. I also think it's like flexibility is good, and so and in fact, like I might look at ChatGPT, and now they've differentiated and they've added annual plans and stuff. But for the first couple of years, they were just offering a very simple $20 a month. And I think there's, one, it like simplifies things for your customers, also for you is a great place to start. And then also it does feel like it comes from a position of strength. I know this as an industry insider. Maybe that doesn't affect like the average consumer, but you go like, oh, well, it goes back to the Netflix thing, David. Like Netflix, it's X dollars a month, right? It's not like, oh, this with a discount and blah, blah, blah. They do bundling and stuff like that. But like it does, I think in some way signal premium to some degree, right? As a consumer, always buy the monthly. Like even if it's 5 times more expensive, like I'm always going to buy the monthly. Yeah. Cause I'm very bad at hedging or like pricing my future attention span. Right. So like I pay more for the flexibility. Right.
So interesting because I'm as a parent, I feel that, I know it's contradicting any logic, but I found myself buying annual plans for my kids sometimes because my inspiration, I think, of course they will use it. Of course,
it depends on the app.
Use this math app exactly for a lot.
Yeah. No, you're making an investment.
After 6 months, I realized, I have a subscription here.
Yeah. Goes back to testing, right? Like every user has different motivations, and you have to test for the aggregate.
Have you ever experimented with weekly plans? I mean, typically they are used. A lot of apps that use them aren't high retention, and so it's kind of like maximizing the LTV over a very short time span.
It's the monthly thesis at the limit, right? It's like, how do you maximize
for Simply Piano, and then maybe especially the bundle, $5 a week. I don't know exactly what your plans are for the bundle, but $5 or $10 a week is probably a very reasonable price for the bundle where you get all the apps and everything like that. And then I heard from a guy at Apple. He since left, so I feel more comfortable saying this. I pushed back really hard on weekly subscriptions like a decade ago, and the conversation with him was like Apple, from their talking to users and everything like that, they do see, especially like in emerging markets and stuff, that weekly plans are that people do like them because it gives you that, like, you know, you're not, for people who like $50 a month is a lot. If they get $50 a month of value, but spread that out $10 or $40 a month of value, but they spread that out $10 a week, that's actually a nice, even kind of what we were talking about with the cash flow of monthly. It's like taking that to the limit of like, I'm just going to pay $10 a week instead of $40 a month, instead of $480 a year. So of all the apps, I think a bundle with all your apps probably is worth $10 a week. But so with all that set up, I'm curious if you've done any experimentation on it, and then what you learned doing that.
It's a great question, because I think I always like to look at the extremes. Yes, weekly reduces the friction even further, right? You don't even think about $5 like how much the coffee cost you this morning. However, when you look, and I'm always sorry for always going back to our users and how they use our app. You want to learn a new skill. This takes time. You cannot judge yourself every week. Oh, do I already know how to play the piano? Am I more confident in singing already? No, this takes time. So yes, it's a low friction, but having this on every week, are you sure you want to pay? Are you sure you want to pay? Are you sure? It's not that easy. So I think when we think of usage, the longer plans make more sense for how people learn new skills. However, you're right that there is this other side of reducing friction upon checkout. We've tested it in some of the apps, not in the bundle, in some apps, but right now we're not offering any returns.
Yeah. And that says a lot. And I love your point too, that even on a monthly, there is a little bit of like commitment. Like, hey, I paid $40 or $30 or whatever the price is, and I'm gonna make use of that. I'm gonna actually
You need to build the habit.
Yeah.
You need to build the habit now.
And finances are an incentive to build that habit.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. As you've scaled the business, what have you done as far as localization? I know so many apps, so dependent on the US and so focused on the US, but it does seem like as companies scale, they have more resources and time to invest in other countries and then actually, start to make it work, where people more focused on the US just throw a price out there and it doesn't happen. So what are you seeing internationally for your products?
I think for many companies, localization or expanding to other geos is quite a high potential low risk growth engine, right? There's not so much risk, of course. You will localize your app to a different culture. People will feel more comfortable using it. However, it's not that trivial. And for us, we always look, we've done two things that mainly work well for us in terms of localization. First of all, when you localize to a different country, or you want to not only convert your currency there, but you really want to localize the pricing, which makes sense. So we created our own pricing index, like our own like a Big Mac index, similar concept, that takes into account not like similarly to the Big Mac, like the purchase power in that geo, but also other considerations that we can refer to when people think about learning how to play a musical instrument or learning how to draw. This is one thing that we've done, and we applied this pricing scheme across all geos. We saw significant ARPU increase, a significant dramatic ARPU increase. In some geos, we were surprised that it didn't work, but we had to adapt there. But in the vast majority of geos, it really worked really well for us.
What was the initial hypothesis or factors that went into the first test? And then, how many geos did you go into where your assumption on price was wrong and you had to change it? Like, did you start with the Big Mac index and like work your way back, or like how did you actually, because this is something I hear a lot of people asking about. Actually, so this is a question I get for Revenue Cat all the time. It's like, you guys have all the data, you should create a pricing suggestion table, but it's not that simple. Different products have different like willingness to pay. So what were the kind of factors that went into your decision making around that starting price when you were focusing on a new geo?
We start always with the leanest way possible. We try to, so I think at the beginning, I'm talking about years ago, we implemented the Big Mac as itself index, and then we evolved it over the years. In that case, we didn't test one geo after the other. We just defined, we modeled pricing strategy with the same principle across all geos. We rolled it out as a test and we saw which worked and we optimized it over time. And of course, pricing tests also, you need to update your pricing, not only as your app matures, but also as you reach new audiences, as the time passes, and it is something that we continuously work on. But I think you touched also on the way that we test stuff, and it does touch the second part of how we localize. And basically localization, it's more than just translation. In our case, we localize the content, the songs of that country, all the translation of the app, all the app store, and of course the pricing and the creatives as well. But if you want to localize to a specific country, you cannot do all this work only to find out that it's not as you hoped for. So what the principle that leads us is we want to make sure that whatever we do it with the highest quality. With localization, it's all about trust, right? If you try to localize your first-time user experience, but you don't continue to localize deeper into the product, people lose trust. I don't know if any of you, if you try to localize to German, German is an interesting example where the way you address people changes. So the consistency, the way that you localize throughout your app, the way that the UX looks, the currency, everything, you need to make sure that whatever you do, even if it's a limited scope, you do it at the highest standards. You don't want to lose trust. You want to make sure that you set up the right expectations with the users. And once you gain confidence in that direction, then you can go all in and do full localization. But we don't do it to begin with. Because it's okay. It's not the riskiest part of growing a product. It's something that is quite sure. When we need, we expand to other markets.
I'm gonna clip that whole segment, and anybody who tells me we tried Germany, like we localized the price, we did a couple of things, and like we just can't crack Germany, I'm gonna send them that clip, because cracking international markets really is a ton of work and it is an investment, and you have to think about it like that, because if you just change the price and expect to crack a market, like that's not how you crack a market. Any other top lessons or like interesting geos where there were counterintuitive things that you learned that maybe you could share and like at least give people a head start?
So yeah, actually one of the most mind-blowing learnings that we've had, at some point at Simple Piano, we decided, we already had been translated to 11 languages, and we decided we want to go to the first geo where we're gonna really localize, not translation, but fully localization. So like we always do, we created a very thoughtful and deep model that estimated the potential of each geo in terms of what might be the upside in that geo, the incremental audience and incremental ARPU, but also what is our confidence that we can really meet that potential. So we landed on Japan. Japan for us, for Simply Piano, was our first deep localization that we wanted to go. So we started, like I mentioned, we're highly confident that we can really reach this potential. We localized some Japanese, songs like from anime, and all the UX was changed, and App Store, creatives, everything was translated and localized, of course, currency, to Japanese. And all the metrics started growing. Great, as expected, except for one metric, the checkout conversion, the paywall conversion. It did not move. Even on the contrary, it even decreased. And we didn't know why. Like, come on, it's like we did everything properly. We brought in a country manager, Japanese country manager, a great guy, and he reviewed our flow. And he told us, guys, you're not treating the paywall properly. We're used to all the best practices in paywalls, make it very clear. Least disruptive. You want to minimize the details on the paywall. You want some social proof, you want some things, but overall you want a very clean paywall. The Japanese, 180 degrees, the opposite. They expect a very detailed story of the company, of the founders, of our values, of all the things that you're frustrated that no one reads, they want to read. All the social quotes and a lot of colors. I'm telling you, you can't even believe. We had a very long one pager that they scrolled and read. Conversion skyrocketed.
Wow.
So it taught us that, in any localization, best practices can take you up to a certain point, but you really need to understand the intricacies and delicacies of each user that you're serving and the audience and what really bothers them. So it was a great lesson in localization.
Such a great insight. Well, as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you the 3 questions I now ask every guest. Kicking off with, what's the most impactful experiment or change you've implemented this year? Your biggest win? I
can talk about a fantastic test that our product team in Simply Draw did, where of course, we didn't talk about how we use AI across all of our work, but we use it very, of course, extensively and heavily. And they used AI to bring the drawing that the kid was just finished drawing, bring it to life. And this gave the kids excitement and something to be proud of, that they were running to their parents to be proud. Look what I did. Now, the parents at that point, what did they see? They saw that, hey, this app that my kid is using is not just spending time on another app. It's like very positive screen time. They could see the value of the app. So when we introduced this during first-time user experience, it really increased ARPU, because parents could really understand, hey, this product worth me investing in it. So this was an amazing, I think, win from our product team. And it was something that, they do these social shares where they share organically, parents share organically on Instagram, and like, look what my kid, 8-year-old kid did. And it's a delight. It's a delight. You see them, it's really a fantastic way to see.
Have you found that feature to perform well as an ad creative? Like, once you launch that feature and saw it really take off, are you actually using that in ads? Because sometimes that's a fun way to like get a really high performing ad, is to find that kind of magic moment.
Exactly. So we are doing it. And you're spot on. Many times, many of our creatives are being inspired by real usage that happens in features that are really beneficial to our users. We turn them into ads.
Yeah, very cool. All right. What is the worst experiment or change you made in the past year? Your biggest fail of the past year?
I knew that you're going to ask me these questions because you're asking it in every episode, and I am a big fan of your podcast. And it's when I thought about it, I said, first of all, so many to choose from, right? We're a testing company. We're always test, and so many failures. But I think one that taught us a lot was what we call a premium awareness test, where in Simply Piano, we introduced a soft paywall at the end of onboarding. And we wanted to see, maybe it will be appealing to the onboarding will be enough for people to already commit. This test won fantastic, significantly on ARPU. It was a great win. We celebrated it. And we were proud of it, and we enjoyed it for months and months. Only to realize after lots of months, that after many months, that actually the users that subscribed through that soft paywall were using our touch experience, meaning they don't necessarily have any piano at home or any keyboard at home. They only enjoyed, we have some couple of touch courses on Simply Piano. So they only enjoyed playing it, but they signed up for a year. We don't have any value for a year. So this is not the audience that we're looking for. So we're so bummed about it because it wasn't winning as we thought. But then we had a second lesson. Then when we looked deeper into the deeper segmentation, we realized that actually one segment did find real value in it. And this was the segment of kids, because kids, they love to really play the same songs again and again and again. They just enjoy it. And it builds them, it gives them time until they're ready to get their first small keyboard at home. So we ended up taking it off our adults, all the accounts with only adults profiles, and we kept the soft paywall for those accounts that have kids profiles on. And this works well for us, but it started as a very surprising loss that we had for that test.
Yeah, that's fascinating. All right, last question as we wrap up, and this is a fill in the blank. Growth would be easier if...
I think if we could impact users during awareness and consideration phases without hurting their privacy needs. You know, at the end of the day, ATT is there for a reason, right? Privacy is good. It does prevent us to customize the experience already from awareness and consideration phases. So I think if we could magically do that, not hurt your privacy, but still be able to fully customize our growth activities and creatives for you, it could have been easier.
Yeah, it's especially hard for y'all targeting kids. The rules around kids and different, and a lot of it is like governmental regulations and stuff like that you have to abide by.
And we all know just how safe and wholesome the App Store is for kids, thanks to those regulations. As parents, we all know that's been done. Thank you very much, Apple, for protecting us. Sorry.
All right. Well, this was so much fun. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think there's so much people can take away, experiments they can go do based on this conversation. So thank you so much for sharing and opening up. Anything you wanted to share as we wrap up? Any roles you're hiring for? Anything you wanted to shout out?
So first of all, it was a great fun. Thank you so much for having me, and it's a real honor to be here. I think for us, I mentioned it earlier. It's we're always hiring. Yeah, we have on our website the positions we're looking for. It's always about being able to reach almost every household around the world and help them fulfill their long life dreams, sometimes of playing piano, playing the guitar, singing more confidently, or drawing more expressively. And I think we're thinking big. We're thinking we're on our way there. And I hope to be able to speak with you guys maybe in a year or 2 years time, and to talk about more products and wider audience, and more than anything, more lessons that we have gathered. It's really exciting time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so fun. Thanks so much for listening. If you have a minute, please leave a review in your favorite podcast player. You can also stop by chat.subclub.com to join our private community.